Okay, we're back. I'm Randy Critical live on the fly. And the other day on Friday, I spoke to Steve earlier about this. I was out in front at the rally prior to the sentencing of Mr. Donziger, and I happened upon my next guest, and that, of course, is Roger Waters, who we talked about earlier in the show. Roger Waters, I was hoping you would take my dog inside to bite the judge because I couldn't go in. But it's great to have you back, Roger. Let me just ask you this to begin with. What was your feeling going in there and then your feeling going out?
Fuck that. Let's talk about the important things first. How is your little doggy? What a sweet animal, really.
Yes. Well, I tried to pawn her off on you, and you wouldn't take her.
I tried to buy her, and you said she couldn't be bought for any price.
You can't be bribed, but
I have to tell you, I'm going to talk to the audience for a minute because Randy's dog is about that long, okay, and it's all covered in sort of nicotine-stained white stuff that was once fur, and she is absolutely gorgeous. And I fell in love with her, and anyway, it's that time of night, so I'm going to have a sip of wine, and then we can get on with the show.
Chardonnay, or is it Sauvignon Blanc?
It's Louis Jadot Puy Fuissé.
Wow, you have that every year on Bastille Day, I believe.
I have that every day on every day. Fuck it, whether it's Bastille Day or not, because that is my everyday, cheap white wine.
That's cheap white wine. All right.
And let's not call it cheap. I've no idea how much it costs. Yeah. This is one of the things about fading rock stars is they don't check the price of Louis Jadot Puy Fuissé or how much a pound of sugar costs or a bottle of milk or in it. I have no idea what things cost.
But the people in Ecuador do, right?
Yeah, they bloody well do. And that's why we're fighting this battle.
Well, you've been at it for a long time. So I must ask you, you've been at it from day one when you met Steve. You've been to Ecuador, and then this was the closing segment of this horrible drama. What was your sense? I saw you going in, and that was it.
Good. You've asked me the question again. Thank you, because I'd forgotten what you asked. You saw me going. It was unbelievable to be in there. It's very weird to be in a courtroom and know that the disgusting woman sitting on the bench has all the power. And that if you stand up in the courtroom and go, I'm not going to use the C word because it's not polite. And also this is a television show and it's going out to people who might be sensitive to the C word, but you just want to stand up and go, I'm not going to use the F word, obviously. It's not as bad as the C word, but I'm not going to call you up on live television but she is such a disgusting piece of shit, that judge, that's what you want to do. But I didn't, and nobody does. You're not allowed to. Well, you are, I think.
I wanted to use the C word all day long, and I understand the sentiment there. I mean, what am I supposed to say? She's a termagant, a virago, or a winch. I don't know what to call her, but she's really a horrible human being, male.
Yeah, but you know what she is, Randy? She is a cog in the fucking wheel. She's irrelevant. She's a nobody, and she'll never be an anybody because she has absolved herself of her right to a walk-on part in the war. She is playing what she considers to be a lead role in her cage, and the cage is the cage of being a federal judge. You have to play the game if that's what you want to be. And she is playing the game. And the game is to sell out to the highest bidder. And the highest bidder is the US government and/or Chevron Corporation. It wouldn't matter. It could have been the Sackler family or people selling oxycodone and, it could be anybody who's making money out of the rest of us. And that's what Loretta Preska does for a living. She supports that machine, and she's a tiny cog. So we shouldn't get too upset about it, because she's an irrelevant piece of shit on the sole of the shoes of people who care about love and human rights and progress and all of those things that I know you care about, because you're my friend and I know you, and Stephen Donziger cares about, and I care about, Niels Meltzer cares about, who's also on this program. And so Loretta Preska is sort of irrelevant to us, except she wields extraordinary executive power because she's a federal judge. I've finished.
Yeah, well, well, you also said the other day something about Thomas Kaplan, who basically,
Lewis.
I mean, did I say
Lewis
Thomas?
A. Kaplan.
Lewis H.
Yeah.
Kaplan. Thomas Kaplan writes for the Times. The fact that she got the case from him, the whole thing was so choreographed. I haven't seen anything like this since Oswald was shot.
No, it's extraordinary. But the good thing is that people like the UN Commission on Human Rights are taking notice of it and going, whoa, this is weird. And it is. It's like it's not like a soap opera. It's like a pantomime. It's like a crazy pantomime. So it's very difficult to take it seriously, except when you're in the courtroom and they're trying to send my friend Stephen Donziger, who is an accomplished, eloquent human rights advocate, and she, this disgusting woman, is trying to send him to prison on a trumped up contempt charge, instigated by the other arsehole in this drama, who is Lewis A. Kaplan, who is the judge who hired her, and Rita Glavin. They're the three main people that whenever they come on stage, I would expect an audience of children to go, boo, because they're villains. They're absolute villains in this charade, and it is only a charade.
I really, it is beyond Kafka-esque. You got to come up with a term. Now, she was accepting, I don't know if she took them seriously, but people sent her letters. And I think Steve and his lawyers advocated sending letters to the judge, but I think she's impervious. I don't care who wrote or writes the letter. And I know that you wrote a letter. You read it the other day. I couldn't hear it all, but it got a lot of applause throughout. Did you submit that letter to her?
Absolutely not. As I explained before I started to read it, in front of the courthouse on 500 Pearl Street, I didn't submit it because I knew it would go straight in the bin. And all the considered and careful legal opinions that were sent to her, explaining to her why what she was doing was so wrong and why this whole thing is such a waste of the taxpayers' money who are being asked to pay her and Rita Glavin, the prosecuting counsel, millions of dollars to preside over this charade. Why it's as wrong as it is. So no, I didn't. But I did. I read it out, and I've got it in front of me here. But I read it out in the street, even though you couldn't hear it.
Well, there's no clean copy out there, so I would, if you would be so kind, could you read it for our audience?
I'd be delighted to. It's a bit long, but I'll read it as fast as I can.
Got time for you.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay. So, shit. I don't know if you remember, but I had to keep passing it to a child who was another witness who was standing next to me to peel sheets off the top because I was a bit dry. All right, here we go. An open letter to federal judge Loretta Preska. Blah, blah, blah. Most letters start with the prefix "Dear." This one doesn't. Judge Preska, if I may, I shall address you using the name your parents gave you. So, Loretta, where to start? First, an explanation of why there is no dear before your name. Well, I was in court recently when you presided over the so-called trial of Stephen Donziger, who was being privately prosecuted at the behest of your colleague, Judge Lewis A. Kaplan, on contempt of court charges. Your handling of the proceedings was execrable.
Ooh, I love that.
I'm not sure whether Loretta knows what the word execrable means, but she should look it up in a dictionary. Now, I'm going to skip a lot because it's a long letter, and I don't think blah 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 blah. Oh, I did like this bit. I feel no warmth towards you. You are not dear to me. If some part of me feels something akin to sympathy for you, which some part of me does, it is not in sympathy with any of your actions, which are, in my view, contemptible. No, what I feel is more akin to the dull, uncomfortable anguish one might experience in the presence of a deranged soul in torment. All right, you get the idea. Yes. You get my drift. I'm not sure you need to hear the rest.
No, go ahead, please. I'd like to hear a little more if possible.
Okay. Are you beginning to get the picture, Loretta? I mean, I was in court again, yesterday, the day before. I watched this woman. She actually looks as if she's disintegrating, and the way she behaved and the way she read out an obviously preconceived description of her reasons for sentencing Donziger was really hard to watch because it's such bullshit, all of it. It's all based on the idea that Donziger is a gangster and that the $9.5 billion judgment that was found in Ecuador by an Ecuadorian court against Chevron for their pollution, the idea that it was fraudulently arrived at, and that in fact Stephen Donziger himself somehow magically wrote the judgment that appears in the name of an Ecuadorian judge and has been upheld by appellate courts, 9 of them, not just in Ecuador, but in other places as well. And anyway, I'll continue. I'll continue with my letter. Good. All right. Let's call a spade a spade. To connive in the way that you have with federal Judge Lewis A. Kaplan and Chevron Corporation in their ill-conceived and dishonest attempts to demonize Stephen Donziger in order to facilitate Chevron Corporation's avoidance of its responsibilities in the matter of that company's refusal to comply with a thrice ratified court order to pay $9.5 billion in reparations for damage done to the indigenous people in the rainforests of Ecuador is despicable. Your actions and those, and then I list a bunch of other people: Mike Wirth, CEO of Chevron; Randy Musto, lead advocate of Gibson Dunn; Susan Kissel, who were the law firm from which Rita Glavin came, who's the prosecuting counsel. She's now left Susan Kissel. Susan Kissel, I think, figured out that she was actually problematic, and so was this law case. So they've distanced themselves from it. Anyway, unlike all of these people, Stephen sorry, you were about to interrupt me then, quite rightly.
Go, I'm listening. I'm sorry.
Okay. Unlike all of the above, Stephen Donziger and I and his advocates, Marty Garbus and Ron Kirby, and supporters like Susan Sarandon, who wasn't there yet. She wasn't there actually yesterday. But the only reason she wasn't there is because she was flying back from Georgia from another case that she's got. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I know she may even have been acting. I don't know. She was on another work of activism or advocacy, but knowing Susan, she probably was. She was either doing that or acting. Anyway, and 68 Nobel laureates and several thousand honest lawyers. I go on and on about all the people who support Stephen, who are real kind of human beings, who are not cogs in the corporate wheel, but are human beings who care about human rights and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to skip on, blah, blah, blah. All of us, unlike all those named above, believe this truth. We all, Stephen Donziger believes this truth. So does Randy. Here we go. All our brothers and sisters all over the world, irrespective of the color of their skin or the depth of their pockets, deserve equal human rights under the law. All right. So I say we've nailed our colors to the world. Sorry. And blah, 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 blah. The man in the street is no blind beggar, Loretta. He sees you trying to keep up the pretense, sitting there on the bench, all supercilious and inviolate, reading your newspaper in open court, for God's sake, trying to keep up the pretense that what you do has something to do with justice, a pretense that would be sad beyond all belief if it were not so deeply obnoxious. No, Judge Preska, you are not dear to me. So where are we now? Where do we stand? You've arrived at your guilty verdict without... And then I try and persuade her that she should say that Donziger should be freed, time served, as he's been in under house arrest for 787 days. And she, in her summing up in court later, after I'd read this letter, she dismissed all of that. She dismissed the hundreds of letters that she's got from people explaining that Donziger does not deserve to go to prison. And she sentenced him to 6 months imprisonment, which is the maximum that she was allowed to.
You were not surprised by that, were you?
No, I wasn't surprised by it. I was disgusted by it, but not surprised. The idea that the leopard Preska would suddenly change its spots, given that it has the opportunity, do you think that Loretta Preska has actually looked at the case that Louis A. Kaplan sat on the bench and gave judgment in, that Steve Donziger was a criminal fraudster who blah, 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 blah? No, of course she hasn't, because that case has completely fallen apart, even though the appeal that went to the Second Circuit was denied, his appeal. It was, in my view, wrongly argued and tried on legal grounds rather than on the basis of the facts, because the facts were that the chief and only witness for the prosecution in that trial was a corrupt ex-Ecuadorian judge called Guerra, who'd accepted $2 million from Chevron to lie to the court on their behalf, which he has admitted since. So it's now a matter of public record that the guy who was paid $2 million by Chevron and also had his whole family brought from Ecuador and set up somewhere in some safe place, lied to the court in order to get the conviction decided upon by one man, Louis A. Kaplan, a significant shareholder in Chevron Corporation. I mean, you couldn't write this shit. This is so
it's
obviously corrupt and despicable.
Every angle of this entire affair reeks of corruption. I mean,
It does.
something so obvious and blatant in any case in my 67 years of life, not one that's this obvious, one that's this execrable.
Well, that is why
execrable again.
Execrable. That is why Loretta Preska looked so haunted in the courtroom. She looked drawn, haunted, and she would look defeated if it wasn't for the fact that she can hide behind what I describe as the inviolate and supercilious nature of her position as the presiding judge. So nobody else in that courtroom has any power. She makes the decision on her own, and she's been told what the decision is. She knew it going into the case. She knew it every single second that we were in the courtroom when we were arguing the case, or Ron Kirby and Marty Corbis were. And she knew it today when she went in. She knew that she was going to sentence him to 6 months, as did we all. But she did it, and she did it in public, and she did it in the glare of the publicity that you, Randy, and Neil Smeltzer, and me, and those of us who support Stephen in his fight for the Ecuadorian rainforest dwellers who've been so disgustingly treated by Chevron, not by the judicial system. The judicial system found that they were deserving of $9.5 billion in reparation for the damage that they suffered at the hands of Texaco. Wow. So this is like them just going, no, fuck you. We're rich. We'll do whatever they want. Fuck the rainforest. Fuck indigenous people. Fuck all poor people. Fuck the working class. Fuck you all. We don't give a fuck about you. We're going to have our way. And the courts, and this is the sick part, the American jurisprudence will back us up because we bought them and paid for them, and they are in our pockets. That's what this case shows.
Wow, that was very well said. I got to tell you, we're out of timer. We got like a minute left. We're going to go out with, if you would just set this up, this is an excerpt from your new masterpiece called The Bar. Can you just give us a 1-minute summation? This is just an excerpt. We played it before of what the bar is, what inspired it, and we'll go out with that.
Yeah, it's a sort of longish song that maybe bookends to a new album of mine, I think, at some point. The bit I've sent you is the bit that talks a bit about Standing Rock and my friends in the Native American community who made that heroic stand against the DAPL pipeline there, among other things. So I won't say any more about it than that. But I promise you this, Randy, I'm going to send you another little clip because you played this clip often. And the way you put the images of the Ecuadorian indigenous people alongside lyrics that were basically written about Native American people in North and South Dakota is very moving to me. So thank you for doing that.
Thank Kelly Lane for that. She does all of the editing. And we have to go now, Roger.
Okay, bro.
Second, but this is The Bar. We're going. I'm Randy Critical live on the fly. The Bar by Roger Waters. Thank you for everything that you do always. You've been there for Steve from the beginning, and for me, thank you very much. You kept this show alive. We're going. See you next week, folks.
All right. Yeah, hope so.